Alright guys, in this video you're going to see how we install a concrete slab for a shed. Now the homeowner's adding a 12 by 20 shed right next to his garage. The slab we're putting is 14 by 20, so he's going to have 2 feet distance in between the garage and when they set the shed on this slab. Now the first thing the homeowner did was I gave him a recommendation for an excavator. The excavator came down, he dug out the sod and the loom, and he installed about 18 inches of gravel, compacted it, got it nice and level for us. And then we were called and said, hey, things are ready to go. So we're going to show up this morning. It's about 6 a.m. in the morning. We got concrete on the way. Concrete's going to take about 45 minutes to an hour to get here. So we called concrete, had them send it while we're setting up the slab, because we know with 4 of us, this is only going to take us, basically 20 minutes or so to get this slab set up and ready to go. So the homeowner gave us the height. He wanted to match the existing floor inside the garage, and we had to take off a little bit of trim work there to, butt concrete up to concrete, make sure everything looked good when everything was finished and done. I didn't get a finished video of the shed sitting on the slab. I can get one of those later on, posted on my other social media, but if you want to learn how to do a slab like this, like if you want to do a shed slab yourself, join the Concrete Underground or get my concrete slab course. Both of those links are in the description of the video below. Both of them in there, you'll learn how to do something just like this. In my training videos, I go over all the little details about how to form it, how to set it to grade, and then I'm going to show you the complete pouring part of this right here, which, for 4 of us, this isn't going to take us very long. I've done these by myself before, just one guy pouring something like this. It's a lot harder, but it can be done. So we put the wire mesh in there for reinforcement. We're tugging it up really good. Once you get the rocks from the concrete under that wire mesh, once you tug it up into the concrete and then step on it again, the rocks keep it from going all the way back down to the bottom. So the wire mesh reinforcement does work without chairs under it or slab bolsters, whatever you guys want to call them. It does stay up in the concrete. I've done videos about that stuff before. And then we're putting a row of rebar around the outside edge. Plus, we got fiber mesh reinforcement in the concrete. This is 4,000 PSI concrete. It's got water reducer in it also. We're going to leave it. It's going to be, now the shed has a wood floor on it, so this is basically just a base slab for the shed to sit on. So we don't really have to finish the concrete. So we'll get it screeded, we'll bull float it really nice and smooth, and then that's going to be the final finish for the concrete. But the first part is just, getting the concrete poured out here. We like setting the forms to grade when we do stuff like this. If the subgrade is done really good, it makes setting the boards to grade really easy if you know how thick the slab's going to be. A 4-inch slab just holding a simple little shed is plenty strong enough. We don't need to pour a 6-inch slab here. He's not going to be driving cars on it. Might put a lawn tractor in there or something, but 4 inches of concrete's plenty strong enough for something like this. So getting back to the forms, we like setting them to grade. If there's some slope to it, we can slope them using the laser level that we use, and then we mag float the edges like you see me doing over there on the right smooth. So when we screed the concrete, it just makes screeding off the top of the form a lot easier. Now you don't have to. You could just leave it rough like this and screed it, I guess, if you want. But then you're going to just have to go back and mag float it out afterwards anyway. So we just do it in advance. We feel it just makes our job a lot easier. And then up against the garage, we shot a mark when we had the laser set up for the forms. We made a mark there in the center about where we want the height of the slab. That's kind of what Darren's looking at right now. And he'll get the concrete pulled up to grade, and then he'll mag float what we call a wet pad up there so we can strike off from that. But if you're thinking of doing a shed slab, putting a slab in for a shed, this is really basically how you're going to do it. You're going to dig out any grass you got, loam you got, any sod or clay or anything like that you got in the area you want. We live in Maine, so we get pretty deep frost here in the winter. But if you put 18 inches of gravel, something like this. You know, if you don't have winters like we do, you don't have to put quite as much gravel. You know, you could get away with a foot or maybe even 6 inches if you live down in the south. But we got 18 inches here, and where everything's going to slope away from this after everything's regraded, there should never get water underneath this thing. So this thing, I'm not too worried about this thing heaving, even though frost could go down into the ground 4 feet. If there's no water for it to seek out, then it's not going to heave. The ground's not going to heave and move. So this should be perfectly fine the way it is. Just kind of tapping the edges a little bit, consolidating the edges. With the slump we pour, the concrete usually consolidates pretty good on its own, and then by the time you drop that rebar in, get your edges all magged out, you've consolidated the concrete pretty good, we found. And you know, you can kind of tell what it looks like as you're pouring the concrete out and mag floating these edges. If those edges need to be vibrated anymore, you could just tap on them with a hammer, or we got a pencil vibrator, battery operated, that we'll use sometimes. This is as simple as it gets here when you're pouring a concrete slab. You know, having something that you have really good access to, you can walk around the outside of it. Your forms are set right to grade. I mean, it doesn't get much easier than this right here. So what Darren and Eric are doing now is they're just striking off from that center pad. Even though Darren mag floated the concrete to the height of the original garage slab, we're just striking it off and checking it, making sure whoever did that other slab got it level at least, because that doesn't always happen. You can see Luke's filling in a little bit of a low spot right there. So that other slab could have a dip in it, and you know, unless you check it with a screed like that or a laser, or maybe even a chalk line or something like that, you're not going to know it. Now we're using a magnesium screed. That thing's 14 feet long. If you're just doing one slab, you could probably get a really straight 2x4 and do the same thing with that, and then not have to spend the money on a magnesium screed. We use them things every day. I've probably had that one way over 10 years anyway. Those things last a really long time, and they stay nice and straight too. So they're lightweight, kind of like aluminum, but magnesium doesn't react with concrete the same way aluminum does. Aluminum has a bad reaction with concrete. And that's how you screed right off top of the form. Eric's kind of in the yellow. Eric's kind of going off the top of the form. He's putting a little down pressure on the screed, keeping it on the back edge is what we like to do. And then Darren's in there kind of kick screeding. That's not as easy to do as it looks. So you may just, you know, if you're learning how to screed, you may just do it in place and just pull that screed 2 or 3 times backwards, stop, set back, and then just keep doing that over and over again. But the way we learned how to screed was, you know, we were taught to kick in our footprints and keep moving backwards as we go. It just speeds things up. But we like to screed like that, especially on bigger floors. But we also have battery operated screeds, power screeds. Something like this is way too small for us to get out a battery screed. Now, if you have one, or maybe you could rent one, you could use one of those on something like this too. It might make it a little bit easier for you, but there's a little bit of a learning curve to those also for getting stuff level. I got all kinds of videos. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please consider subscribing. And if you do really want to learn how to use a power screed or a battery screed, I got that stuff in the Concrete Underground also. So here I am bull floating this, and I'm going to be a little bit fussy, a little bit more careful bull floating, even more careful than what I usually am, because I know this is going to be the final finish. So I'm going to try not to leave any deep lines or anything like that. The good thing about that bull float is it has rounded edges on it, and when you push it and pull it backwards, it leaves very little line in the concrete itself, finish line, versus maybe a square edge bull float that seemed to dig in a little bit more on the edges. So I want to make sure a couple things, that the concrete surface is really smooth. I've filled in, all the screed marks, all the rock holes or whatever filled all them in, smoothed the concrete off really nice, and then not leave a line on that right hand side because that's kind of the finished side. I always overlap that side an inch or two when I pull the bow float backwards. And then where I pick the bow float up, it always leaves a little bit of a line. We'll mag float that out and make sure that's nice and smooth when we're all done. But if you got a question about how we do things, or maybe something you're thinking of doing, you know, leave your question down in the comments. Let me know where you're from. If you like videos about concrete, if there's something specific you like, let me know that down in the comments also. But again, thanks for watching my videos. Go ahead and subscribe right now, and we'll see you on the next one.
How much should you get for a shed now? That's one pitch on the roof, right? No, it's two pitch. That's why I was going to come off with the roof here. Yeah. Drain off on. I'll tell you. Going to run one down this. One thing I know is going to try to mag that without leaving lines if I could. I think I'll leave a bigger line with this.